I went onto the streets then in Darndale because I suppose if you were like an older sort of gangster and you looked at me at 16, I was like, the height I am now, 5'11", 6 foot. I was like 90 kilos of solid muscle, 3-time Irish boxers, having a 4 Nation gold medalist, and I had a brain on me. I was ideal, to be on the street. And again, I was only 16, so I was naive. So I was on the street doing things and moving things and getting into a lot of street fights. So like, well, I call a street fight a dirty go more. I got into bare knuckle fights and stuff. Like for instance, I avenged like this bully who bullied me when I was a kid. I fought him when I was 15 on the streets, officially on refereed and that, and I knocked him out in 42 seconds, broke his jaw. He was 25, I was 15. He was 24, I think. I was 15, and then I had a few other bare knuckle fights with Travers and that as well. Never lost, and yeah, I had these street fights then, which we call dirty goes. Travers, which is just anything goes, and that happened mostly around. Yeah, everything like no rules, like more vicious than MMA. So I'd fight around Darndale and Coolock and with settled lads and sometimes travellers and sometimes weapons and sometimes big gangs. Like there was one time where we went to a wedding. And it always happens at a wedding with travellers. So we're doing nothing for stereotypes there. But yeah, so we went to a wedding, a cousin wedding of mine, and my cousin got attacked at it by a big group of kind of travellers who were very well known. So me and my brother grabbed him and took him out into the car park. But by the time we did, he was exhausted and he threw himself on the ground. And so we looked around, we looked over and we looked at the door. And suddenly we seen about 20 fellas coming out to give it to us, So I just ran at them. And I ran at the kind of main fella and I get my big fucking proper windmill right hook and just knocked them out. And they all start spreading away then and going to different people. So they went to my brother Joe, went to Patrick, and went my brother, my cousin as well, Patrick, and me. And so they were giving it all, 5 or 6 of them each on each one of us, and my brother fought back and he gave a good go. My other cousin, he was really still tired from the ground. So he fell on the ground and took a bad beat. And then me, they were sticking Budweiser bottles in my head, stabbing me in the head. And I was like 23 stone at this time, very heavy, but at the same time, very strong. And he couldn't knock me down. It was like a scene out of Raging Bull. And I was like, you're never going to knock me down. But there was like my eyes around my hair. But I did a lot of damage to him, a lot, to the point where he actually backed away in the end. And then police and ambulance came and all that stuff. We went up to the room and just drank for the rest of the night, put some ice on her eyes, and it was good crack actually. And then we ended up having bare knuckle fights from that. 6 months later, we all got training and that happened. So yeah, like, I mean, that was a kind of mad time from like 15, 16 to up to 19. And then I ended up getting in a really kind of bad depression. And my poor mother was very worried about me. And, one morning I woke up on Mother's Day morning and there was blood all over my mother's bed, in Darndale in the house. And I thought, who did this? What's going on? Where is she? And I called her. And I said, Mommy. We used to call our mothers Mommy. I said, Mommy, I said, where are you? What's going on with this blood? And I was trying to give her like my Mother's Day gift. And turns out that, her fiance threw her down the stairs of a pub, dragged her across the car park, threw her head in a puddle. And when she came down, she was unrecognizable. Her face, her head, it was really bad. So I called your man and I said, look, you're going to have to go back here and face the music. He said, or else. And he was like, no, you're not coming back, man. I'm in the pub and blah, blah, blah. And I said, all right, then. So the next bit I just can't say because it's incriminating. But anyway, I did something. I did something to make sure that he came back. And he was worried he was worried about more than himself, I'd say. Now, to put it into context, I was 16 or 17, so, I'm an actor and a filmmaker now, but back then I was a mad cunt. And it was that age, full of trauma, didn't know what was going on. So you do mad impulsive things. So he ended up coming back, and then I beat him with a baseball bat and a steel baseball bat, very bad. And he died a few times, came back to life, and in the ICU in Beaumont Hospital. He was there for about, I believe he was there for 6 months or something. He got a lot of his body just redone through titanium in his face, and all his bone structure was all messed up. And it was a weird one because I had gotten to really like to do it. And I had to do that. I had to do it for my mother because my mother protected us, against a lot of stuff, and reared us on her own hard, down a mad lane of traveler sites, with no father, and gave us all the love in the world and made sure that, we never starved, we never were hungry, and, did our best for us, the best mother you could have asked for. So the worst thing you could do to me is hurt my mother. So I inflicted as much pain and damage on him. Now, the fun thing is, for years, I regretted not making sure that I killed him, Now I'm delighted. Now I'm delighted I didn't.
Obviously,
because I would have done a lot of time,
Obviously, when you've grown up and you've realised back then, I can understand it. When you're that age, you just want to inflict pain on people, especially when you've been through what you've been through.
Yeah.
But looking back, if you had to kill them, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing now. Your life would be ruined, wouldn't it? You'd be on. If you weren't
absolutely not.
Weren't still in prison, you'd be out on life license, and it's no life, is it?
It's no life, man, and it's like I would have been just continuing the cycle, man, of everybody in my family, all the men in my family, in the Connor side, even in the Ward side, my mother's side, some of them did prison. My grandfather did 3 years. Paddy Ward, he did 3 years in Crumlin prison in the 50s. A legendary man, him, and he was a real proper man, a big man with shovel hands, and he lived a long life for a traveller, especially. He lived till 82. His 5-year anniversary was yesterday, and he became like a father to me and kept me out of as much trouble as possible, and advised me when in that bare knuckle road where I was, your man I was fighting. He was the one to give me the thumbs up, saying, "Yeah, you can fight her," because I kind of had to ask him permission, So I had good father figures around me, But as I said, when I got to that point, then my mother found out kind of some of the stuff I was doing and messing about with when I was about 19. And I had a few cousins who were murdered, and then a few friends who were murdered, and then a few friends who overdosed. So there was all of that. A lot of that happened within 1 year. And I just looked around what I was doing. I was going, this is going to be me next. And my mother found out some of what I was doing. And she cried and begged me to stop. And so from that point on, Ricky, I stopped. I just said, this is it now. I think I might have been 18, 19, close enough. So, but for the next year and a half, I was like broke with no money and depressed, and I gained like 8 stone weight. And all I did was watch films. And I watched The Sopranos on repeat, drinking bottles of wine, eating lasagna up in my room, just collecting my social welfare, and then buying like DVD box sets and going to the cinema with that. That's it, not leaving my room for any other reason. And then one day I just basically decided to kill myself. I said, this is it. And my brother Joe knocked on the door. The second I went, I'm going to kill myself in my mind, my brother Joe knocked on the door, which I thought was really weird, It reminded me of the time when I was a kid in the campsite and my father was calling me. And he kept calling me, and I was like, Daddy, where are you? I couldn't see him. So I went to my mother, and my mother called us in for dinner. And I said, Mother, I said, well, Mommy, I said, Daddy's looking for us. Well, where is he? He's calling me all day. She said, nah, son, he's not. She knew he was in the mental hospital, or he was supposed to be. And actually, about an hour later, we're eating our dinner, and the police come in on guard as Síochána and let us know that my father had killed himself, and he'd been dead a couple of days. So you tell me what that is. I don't know. So when I decided to kill myself, My brother Joe knocked on the door in that moment, which was freaky. And he said, "Are you going to kill yourself?" I went, "What?" And I wouldn't let him know because I didn't want to frighten him, but I also was afraid to talk about it and ashamed.
Yeah.
But I gave him an indication that I was, so he would not let go. And basically, we came to the conclusion that I had to do something different. And the boxing was gone in the past at that point, and I hadn't been fit enough, and I let it all go, and injuries, injuries, injuries. And he said, "Why don't you try acting?" And then I remembered that acting class I did when I was 16, that course, acting course. So I said, "Fuck it, I'll give it a go." So I called, he said, "Look, Google acting classes Dublin." And the Abbey School came up on Abbey Street. And I said, "Look, I want to do some acting classes, blah, blah, blah." The teacher was like, "Look, John, have you ever acted before?" And I was like, "Nah, not really. Did an acting course when I was 16. And she's like, "Well, John, you're probably best off doing the adult for fun class." She's an American woman, hoping not butchering her accent. But I said, "Look, I don't want to do an adult for fun class. That sounds shit to me. I need to do something deep, basically." And she said, "Look, there's an advanced scene study course you could do," and blah, blah. I said, "Yeah, sign me up." So I think it was like €290. I had about €100 from my social welfare payment, the dole. And then I borrowed the rest off my brother and my uncle. And then I got the last €5 off my mother to get the bus into town. And when I got there, I came into a class, where we all got around in a circle. And basically, everybody in the room were like middle upper class people. And I was not middle upper class, I was a traveller from Darndale, a double one. So I felt really uncomfortable and insecure and inferior, to be honest, because all the actors were talking about their backgrounds and what they did in acting school. And I was like, what? So they set up an improvisational game. And I decided in my head to leave the class the first kind of opportunity where no one would fuss me. So they set up this improvisational game between actors, and there were two characters in it. One was a shopkeeper, and one was a customer. And the customer would walk outside the acting class and walk in and really decide what kind of dynamics it is, what kind of shop it is. So this improvisation began where there was this Brazilian black man who was the shopkeeper, and this really upper class Dublin guy from the posh side of town. And he walked in, and he was the customer, and he was like, "I'd like to buy some vanilla protein and stuff." Because he was like, well in shape, and he was like trying to brag in front of the girls. And then he ended up, from me, being very patronizing to the black fella and being, I think, racist. So, from all the stuff that happened to me as a kid, like Ricky, people don't really realize what Travis goes through, especially in Ireland. Like, we were segregated as kids, put in an all travel class, not allowed to mix with settled kids. Our teachers called us knacker and pikey. Every day to and from school, knacker and pikey, having to fight settled kids 7 days a week, our whole lives being made feel inferior. So I wouldn't allow this. So what happened was the improvisation ended, and the Dublin upper class guy became the shopkeeper, and they were looking for someone to become the customer. So I volunteered. And I walked outside the class, and you're meant to get ready and put on your actor face and all that bollocks.
Yeah.
And I wanted to leave and run down the stairs and run away and avoid it all, but I was too angry. So I busted through the door, and I made the whole scenario a bank. So I robbed the bank, and I slapped the actor in the face. I threw him down to the ground. I took off his shoes, his socks, and I was halfway taking off his tracksuit bottoms when the teacher came in and said, John, please stop. So I said, "Oh, shit." So I took off running, Ricky, out the door, down one stairs, down another stairs, down the other stairs, with the teacher running after me. "John, come back, come back." She was a real Shakespearean trained teacher, and was always trying to break me in for theatre and project your voice and all this. And I was like, but that's not real, because I didn't grow up watching theatre. It's a real middle and upper class thing. So anyway, I'm running down Abbey Street. The teacher's running after me. "Come back, John, come back." And I turned around and I said, "Don't call the police." And she said, "I'm not." She said, but listen, you're fucking crazy. And I said, oh, right. And she said, but I like it. I said, oh, you do? She said, look, let's come back up. Let's see what you can do. You can play anger and rage like I've never seen any actor. But let's see if you can do other stuff. And I said, okay. So I went up and everybody gave me a big clap. I think they're all in fear, you know. Ooh. And I Googled acting classes Dublin that night. As I was walking down Abbey Street, people were looking at me randomly, and it's because my face was doing a mad smile like this, and I hadn't smiled in about 18 months. And I Googled acting classes Dublin that night, and I said, how do you become a better actor? And I was like, learn your lines, right? So they gave me like this 10-page script that I had 12 weeks to learn, and I had to have it learned by the end of the 12 weeks to do on stage with a scene partner. And I had it learned the next morning because I was so obsessed with it, you know. I have that obsessive personality that I had that with boxing. And when I walked in back home into my house in Darndale, my mother's back was facing me, but my mother had a sixth sense, and she said, "Jono, something's different." And she turned around, saw me smiling, said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I did an acting class, but don't tell anybody," because it was a shame, you know, and all the travellers finding out I'm in an acting class. So, and then he found out I was acting, and they all accused me of being gay because I was acting. So yeah, that got me up into that love of acting and really discovering acting by, I suppose I'm 34 now. That's a little slice of my life that got me up to like 20 years old.